this meeting to order. Can I get approval for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the finance report.
Yes, so first for the monthly financials, you have the balance sheet in your packet, showing in our checking we had $106,888.20 in the checking. Escrow was still holding $30,000, and then our properties held for sale are $42,504. On the back of that should be the profit and loss, showing that we are currently at a net income of $47,581.64. The following page is the list of checks that were dispersed for the month of March. And then we have the budget versus actual. It's showing that we are pretty close to where we should be at a quarter of the way through the year, and we are at 22.74%. And then we just need a motion to approve and accept the March 2025 financials.
Are there any questions on the finance report? Any questions? Can I have a motion to approve the finance report?
I'll make that motion. Second.
All in favor?
And then also in your packet, we have the audited financial statements. So the first is the communication to those charged with governance. That just reviews how the documents were reviewed by Mar Dussel and their process for performing the audit, followed by their actual audited financial statements. And if you turn to what they have numbered as page 1, the statement of net position shows that at the end of December 2024, it showed we had accounts payable showing $71,328. The escrow deposits were the $30,000, and total liabilities the $101,328. On the following page, the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. It showed that we had grant income from the Erie County Land Bank of $507,671, miscellaneous income of $8,354, so a total operating revenue of $516,025. Let's see. And then after that, it was showing the management letter to the Board of Directors that we wanted to have a discussion. First, on the segregation of duties, they are recommending that a member of the board review unopened bank statements, including canceled check images, and a formal review of bank reconciliations by someone independent of the cash disbursement process. So we do, or I can provide the bank reconciliations at the monthly board meetings, but we were looking for guidance on what you would like to see if we possibly have a board member that would be willing to come in and open and review the paper bank statements. And additionally, we would have to pay a fee to the bank for having paper statements sent instead of just the electronic copies.
So will that bank statement, as far as I guess the financial statements and different things like that, will that interfere with you preparing the monthly reports?
If I still have access to the electronic copies and leave the paper bank statements untouched so that a board member can open and review those, that can be a separate process.
All right, and so should that be the treasurer who would open the bank statements? I believe that's you, Paul. That's you, the treasurer, correct? Is Paul the treasurer?
Paul is the treasurer.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't follow that.
Oh, so the auditor that we had for the 2024 financials is recommending that we have somebody from the board willing to come in and open physical paper bank statements.
Okay, that's fine. I've done it before.
Each month? Okay.
Yeah.
What about the segregation of like the duties?
So on the back of that letter that they had, there were, under the financial reporting, they had an adjustment made due to a deficiency of the 2023 audit to remain in compliance with the generally accepted accounting principles. And then below that, for the journal entries and policies and procedures, we are preparing a procedure to review and approve for the May board meeting that we'll present at that time. That will be regarding, based on what guidance you would like for the bank statements, which we can propose that the treasurer would come into the office physically once a month to open those. And then we also have a policy that we would want to implement for regarding the journal entries on a quarterly basis.
Okay.
And I'm going to put my redevelopment authority hat on, so I assume that we would do the same at the redevelopment authority books and procedures, or more complicated, probably?
Undetermined. So we do.
Undetermined, okay.
We are planning on having policies and procedures implemented that are not currently in writing right now for the redevelopment authority. But we do have a different audit in progress right now with a different auditing firm. So I'm waiting to see what their suggestions are.
Okay. Generally, it's best to try to keep things streamlined. So if you're doing one for one organization, the same organization,
I
so
agree.
you're not doing one-offs. And
It is easier that way, yes.
it's a little harder to get there, but once you're there, I think
Yes.
that you'll find it beneficial.
Right, and as it, to Debbie's point with the segregation of duty, certainly they do emphasize it as a small staff. It's certainly hard to stretch out those segregation of duties, but it was under the policies and procedures. Certainly, as with a new auditor every year, they put a fresh set of eyes to the financial statements of the land bank. And so, certainly, I don't think we need a personnel management plan for the land bank, since the land bank does not have personnel to manage. But, certainly we don't have adopted procurement procedures. We always lean back on the redevelopment authority's procurement procedures. So there's just that, to Chuck's point, certainly, as with a lot of the other things, we have similar documents under both organizations with different letterhead on them, and we'll work to create those and have those for the May meeting, as April had mentioned.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions on the auditor's findings of deficiency in consideration? Yes, ma'am.
No, so
No.
essentially, we're looking for the board to accept the financial statements as presented. They're due to DECD by the end of the month.
So we need a motion for that?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
That's all right.
Do you have a question?
No, I'll do that. That's okay.
May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, at this time, if we have any citizens who would like to be heard, we ask that you come to the podium. I also just want to mention, as far as we have developer proposals that are listed on the agenda today as well. When we get to that point of the meeting, the board will go into a closed executive session to discuss those. So if there are citizens who would like to be heard right now, please come to the podium.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I am Dr. Roche Vermaak. I'm the Executive Director of Habitat for Humanity of Erie. We put in a bid for the 211 Locust Avenue. Habitat, since 1991, has built 73 new houses in the city of Erie, 4 in Union City. We are completing a house in East Lawn Parkway. We just broke ground on 2 more houses that we're going to build on 29th Street. Our commitment has been to the city of Erie, and especially to the east side where there is no development. Our market is low to moderate income families who cannot go to a mortgage lender or a bank and get a traditional mortgage. They don't have the money, they don't have a 20% down, and they don't have the credit score. And so our focus is, instead of properties just being vacant and not producing any income from the city and the state, the county from the taxes, to build houses. We sell the house at 0% interest over 25 years to families. And so a $100,000 house cost them $100,000 over the 25 years. And if we were able to successfully bid on this property and receive it, we would either build in October of this year, it would take us about 5 months over the winter. Otherwise, we would break ground in April of 26, and it would take us about 3 to 4 months to finish a house on that property. I don't know if there are any questions for us. Yes?
I think that's a double lot, isn't it?
Yes.
Will you be putting up one house or two houses?
I spoke with Aaron this morning, and originally it was a triple. If the city would allow us to divide it into 2 or 3, we would build 2 to 3 houses. Yeah. It seems a bit of extravagant to have such a large lot for just one family.
Yeah, as he mentioned, it was originally in the development of that neighborhood, it was 3 parcels under the original subdivision, but Locust was combined into 1 parcel.
And what are the dimensions of it?
It's big.
I'll have to get back to you.
But, yeah.
120
Oh,
front.
120 frontage, and the houses in that neighborhood would be 50-foot lots, 40-foot lots, do we know?
They were 40-foot lots.
Okay.
The rest of the neighborhood is 40-foot lots. Now,
So-
behind it, there is some other lots that were combined, I'm sure, over development and in open lots, there was a lot that was combined.
So if we allowed them to put 3 up, with 3 40-foot lots, that would fit the neighborhood.
We would only permit them to do whatever zoning and planning commission would permit them to do.
Because there's topographical issues with this property, or?
I'm not a site engineer.
Yeah. Is this flat? Is this a flat parcel?
Some of my site selection, 2 realtors went to look at it, and they were just ecstatic about it. So whatever we need to do in terms of moving earth and land with the city's permission, we'll do it.
Thank you.
For us, it's just a wonderful opportunity that came along.
I got a question, just for the public record. Where exactly is 221 Locust?
221 Locust is located on the west side of State Street, up around about the 3400 block behind the WICU building in the neighborhood up in there in the Glenwood Hills neighborhood.
Has there been any discussion with any of the people that own property up there? Or is there rental housing up in that area, or is this homeowners? It's a question.
One of the proposals is from a neighbor directly across the street. We've had numerous conversations with neighbors in the area over the lengthy process of remediating and mitigating the blight of this lot. But as far as a public meeting or public input on the development, certainly that is open and up to whatever developer purchases the lot and builds it.
Okay, that's off of 34th and State?
It's up in that area. I'm not exactly sure.
All right, I'll
It's-
find it.
But
Okay.
if you turn off of by WICU, it's up in that neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah, and our intent is we do not rent out. We make people homeowners.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith, thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to provide public comments? Okay, all right. We will move to the report for the executive director.
I do not have a report for the board today. Essentially, my report is going to be the discussion on the proposals that we have in front of the board today, along with the habitat and the website later on in the agenda.
All right, thank you. We have the solicitor's report.
Good afternoon, Board. Gene Summer, happy to be here. You have within your packet, you would have the April report from my office. First and foremost, I wanted you to see where we stand with regard to a number of pending transactions. We are going to provide the board with monthly updates as to what transactions we've been able to close, and those that have not yet closed, where they stand within that process. The next topic is with regard to the outstanding real estate tax issues. So we're continuing to work with, and we've talked about in the past, working with the different row offices to make sure that we've addressed and to the satisfaction of all the different offices, addressed back taxes and municipal liens and the like. So we're continuing to work with those row offices to accomplish those. So we've been able to address many of those as a result of preparing these properties for sale and getting them to closing, because we have to have those issues resolved to convey clear title, and that's what we're doing. The next topic of interest is with regard to the property at 621 Wallace Street. This was a long-standing matter where we acquired the property, and there was a holdover within the property. What I have done, and also with Aaron's office, is to make sure that what we followed was the proper procedures to provide notification to that holdover. It was more than a year process. I spoke to that tenant. I loosely say tenant on a number of occasions. There were numerous visits. Assurances were provided by that individual that they were working on and then ultimately had secured replacement housing. We provided them with any number of contacts to acquire replacement housing throughout that year-long process. When the actual removal took place, they were provided with 30-day notice of that date. So hand delivery, posting of the property, a very extensive process was undergone and undertaken so that this tenant was not just thrown to the curb. I'm comfortable with the process. We have not heard any further contact from this individual since then. This person had my direct dial office, had my direct phone, my office, and also the various people within this office as well, so that if there were any concerns that we would have and did help throughout the process. So I want to assure the board that that the proper procedures were undertaken with a lot of extra time provided to this individual. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to discuss that process with them. And the fact, I think that it's telling that we have not heard anything further from that individual or anyone as a representative on behalf of that individual. So I think that that's telling that the procedures and the time frame that were undertaken were proper and appropriate. The quiet title actions are encouraging in how they're.
Hold on.
Yes, sir.
I got a comment to make about 621.
Yes,
What I
sir.
would like to see in the future, and I think it's only appropriate, that any kind of contact you make with someone facing, especially eviction knows, that it's documented and it's done in writing, dates and time of your contact, what you gave the tenant. Because what we have is what you're saying you did, but if it's documented, then there's no blowback. Got away with it this time, but in the future, we may not be as smooth.
And I'm happy to provide the board with all of the documentation, not only with regard to this property, but with regard to other properties as well. It's very well documented, And I understand the concern that the board would have is all of a sudden they're being approached and saying, how is it that you pulled the carpet out from someone? And that's not the situation that happened here, and certainly will not be the situation hailing forward. But I have absolutely no problem with providing the board with detailed documentation confirmation, because when I speak to someone on the phone, there is an internal memorandum that is generated by me and my office that goes in the file. Spoke with Susie Q on this date with regard to, the documentation that she received. She confirmed with me that she's reaching out to the various entities. And in this case, I had confirmation that she had a new lease with a new owner. So there is all that documentation. And I understand the board's position that you need to see that. I'm more than happy to provide that as we proceed down, because there's going to be more like this. So I think that it is appropriate that the board see those, and I'm glad to make a part of that ongoing monthly report so that okay, July 1st is when this is going to happen to this tenant down here. Here's what Gene and his staff and also Aaron's staff has done to confirm that July 1st is an appropriate date for that person to be physically removed. Right. So I
echo, what Gene said, and to the point that we, got away with it this time. Certainly, this has been well documented. We can go back and pull out Gene's solicitor reports along with our own internal documentation as far as communications, visits to the property, photos of documentation. We made every attempt to communicate, to guide, to lead, and to assist this individual with the necessary placement into something. We ultimately can't force anybody to follow up with a recommendation that's provided. That's where it is. But I mean, we document to the same level we do with everything else that we touch as far as individuals and client support. So, we have the backup documentation, and it's readily available.
Okay, thank you.
And I understand that going forward, how important that is for the board, and I'll make sure that is a priority.
And let me just jump in. I will also jump in. I've been in those situations in my previous career. I put out a number of people, probably 100 families in my career. Never a good day. And so I thank you for your consideration, your patience, your understanding. Sometimes with mental illness issues pop up, folks are not able to make great decisions. It sounds like this could be an example. So as we develop policies, procedures, I'd be happy to weigh in and give you little experiences. Was I successful? Sometimes. Was I unsuccessful? Many times. But and it's kind of funny just thinking we're the land bank and now we're talking about people. So I guess it's a whole new foray for the land bank to actually have to address folks that are actually living in their situation.
It's unfortunate, and not to continue the conversation too much more, but essentially, we do our due diligence. We check for utility status. Again, to your point, sometimes we can't harbor the stability of the individuals, but to live in a property without utilities, sometimes, we do what we do, but if a property looks vacant, but unfortunately somebody's still residing in it, which is unfortunate. And
really the best thing you can do on the day of is just make a referral to a homeless shelter, and at least you know that they have a warm place to stay that night, and that's if appropriate. And there's a million tools, but it's hard to know which tool to use at the time. So I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Absolutely. And the more information and feedback that I can receive as part of the process, that would be great. So thank you for all that, board. What I've also wanted to provide out here is to give you kind of a or a summary of the quiet title actions. Again, these are properties that were taken at the tax sale, and what we want to do is make sure that the title is free and clear so that these properties can be made available to third parties. We're being very successful with the judges. We've, again, as part of our procedure and process and learning curve, quite frankly, we've been able to confirm what judges are looking for, what judges are comfortable with. And so we did receive a number of orders. We still wait an additional 30 days after the judge signs the order before we file the final clearance of judgment. So if there is a party, even after the order, we still wait an additional 30 days to make sure that there are no questions out there or concerns by any third party. And on a final note, I wanted to provide the board with successful developments. These are long-standing processes that we were able to, with Aaron's office, to get across the finish line and to file the certificates of completion with regard to these properties. So these, again, are those efforts by this board and Aaron's staff to get places redeveloped, rehabbed. So these are success stories that I think is really important for the board to know and appreciate your efforts for the city of Erie. So with that, that's the conclusion of the solicitor's report. Happy to address any concerns. If there's any follow-up, I tell people, don't be bashful, let me know. If you've got a question or a follow-up, and the best way to get a hold of me is by email to do that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jane. All right, next on the agenda, unfinished business and new business. Are we going to do the Habitat for
Yeah, I
Humanity
can
request?
speak of them of record, and then the board can take whatever action you wish, if you want to table them for next meeting or seek additional clarification. First up is Habitat for Humanity. In discussion with them, they have a property out at 2414 Linwood Avenue that they acquired back in 2018. It currently has a structure on it. It's a structure with no basement. Size of the house is small. It sits in the middle lot. I provided the parcel kind of overview, drone view of the property with your packet. So the house sits way back in the middle. It's actually closer to Fairmont Parkway than it is Linwood, but they're looking to build on it. Essentially, Habitat, resources for demolition is minimal. They were trying to seek out and reach for some assistance with demolition. And so I told them, I told Roche that certainly, we've entertained proposals like that in the past, and the board has decided for or against assisting with demolition. So he provided this information. I know it was, short, and we have a lot on the agenda, so the board can deliberate on this over the next month. And they've owned it since 2018, so I don't see a pressing issue or need to seek any kind of acceptance or that today. So.
I agree.
So specifically, what were they requesting?
They're requesting funding for demolition.
For demo?
Yes.
But they plan to build something in the near future, which is our big objective here.
That is their plan, is to build in the near future. So it's a property that's been vacant since 2018. There is no code history on it, so it's just kind of resided in the middle of the block for 7 years with no occupancy. So.
How much would demolition cost for something like this, Aaron?
Given there's no foundation in the size of the structure, it would potentially probably be around about $4,000 for something of this similar stature.
Right.
And I can certainly solicit for bids and have that, as a recommendation for the board to consider at the May meeting, if that is the
No, I
will
was
of
just
the board.
actually inquiring. I was just inquiring as to how much demolition would cost.
Okay. All right, and then the next one on the agenda, if you want me to move on, is Erie Land Bank website update. So the Erie Land Bank website was created in 2017 by WorkBot. Its functions fine, but there's some limitations to our ability to modify and edit. And and I had a discussion with them last week, there's some changes and some updates to technology. I mean, it's been essentially about 8 years since the Land Bank website was created. There's some things and some functionality that we could have added to it, and some things that necessarily we can't do as a staff that we would need them to do. So their request is really my request is an overall just a refresh on the Land Bank website, update a lot of the functionality of it, give us a better CMS that's updated and current. Technologies, they typically say, recycles every 3 years. So, we're a little bit coming up on 3 times that recycle. So the website is great. The CMS system does work very well for us. It is drag and drop and that, but there's just a lot of things. And so we could go in and we could piecemeal change it, but we could go and also look at it holistically and just have a complete refresh on it. So I think the overall proposal is over $8,000 to revise it. Certainly, I'm not looking for any approval or anything today. I'd like the board to review that document, put some thought to it, and then we can talk more about it at the May meeting.
Okay.
Any comments on that? No?
No.
Okay. So next one is vacant lot proposals, and so, we can certainly review these ones, and then we can talk about the other one, the next number 4 and 5. So vacant side lot proposals, and so what we've done, and so the board is aware, over the last several months, we revised the policies and procedures. So we're looking at vacant lots differently. Vacant lots for development and vacant lots for side lots. So you'll see them as we move forward. We're going to specifically put on, vacant lots as side lots. So essentially, we may have one side lot owner who wants a lot, or we may have competing side lot owners. So as you can see in the spreadsheet that's attached, we have a couple parcels where there's, competing side lot owners, and then there's some where there's just one. So these are as a response to reaching out to the side lot owners, informing them that we own the lot, and requesting if they would be interested in purchasing that lot to combine with their parcel. So, we worked through with Gene. As a reminder for the board, any side lot at the time of closing, we combine those parcels. So there is no longer a standalone parcel next to their lot. No separate tax. It's all combined into one taxable parcel. So I don't know how you wish to proceed. I know we certainly, there's 427 Liberty has 2 proposals. Those are both one proposal from each property owner on the left and right of that property. 519-21 East 25th Street only has one from Dan Fior, who owns a commercial building to the east of the vacant lot. 623 East 11th Street is a property owner at 621 East 11th Street. 102 East 24th Street, which is a property owner who owns the rental property next door. And then 715 West 4th Street, which is essentially nobody to the left or right of the parcel. We have John Reitinger, who owns the parcel behind it on 5th Street, and Mr. Rodriguez, who owns the parcel directly across the street from it on 4th Street. So, go ahead, Senator.
Yeah, I see on several of these that the request is for parking. And what requirement do we have for parking on a side lot? Can they just pull it onto the dirt? Or
No.
Are they required to pave it, or what's required? Because they can look like hell, if it's a rutted
Right,
dirt
so
parking lot.
certainly I would defer to zoning on that. I know property maintenance code requires some kind of gravel subbase for parking, that they're not permitted to just park on grass. However, they would be required to, and it's in our agreement, that they have to seek zoning approval, they have to get a curb cut, install a driveway. That is all there. It's a matter of whether or not they proceed with it post our sale or not is where we kind of step away from it.
And all these lots are big enough to be buildable? I mean, they're at least 30 feet of frontage?
I guess you would have to define buildable and the zoning variances that would be required to build on that. So certainly anything is buildable with the right amount of variances, but I'm also not the zoning board, so.
Well, sometimes we have quite small lots,
Right, and I would essentially consider these
Normal size?
unbuildable lots without
Okay.
joining it to a second lot to make it so that the zoning variances weren't huge.
Well, there's value to parking for income properties. I have a 41-foot lot in the 300 block of West 4th Street, which is next to a big flat. Mine's vacant. I've turned down offers for $10,000 for it. On-street parking is at a premium in some areas, and if they want to put these students in, they need
Right.
parking lots. So there's value to these
Yeah, I mean,
lots for that use.
I will say, and anyone that's familiar with the lot structure in the city of Erie, 427 Liberty is essentially one of those 3 parcels at the corner of a block, which there is no off-street parking, there is no driveway. They're essentially the size of the house, and that's it. So, when we look at a structure like that we acquire, when it's at that point where, is it rehab or not, rehabbing that structure, we have to consider would push 2 more cars onto a street that's already overburdened with on-street parking. Now what we've done is essentially created a parcel where one of the property owners who doesn't have off-street parking has the ability to purchase it and create off-street parking. So we've created a benefit and helped a burden for Public Works and their snow removal and other such services that occur, and have problems with on-street parking.
I was just going to jump in. I think it's good to remind the purchasers that I think it's when you're building a parking lot of over 4 cars, it requires a solid surface and stormwater management, which can really add up. And I say that because well-intended people want to proceed and they don't understand what things are eventually going to cost, and then they're stuck. And then eventually will be recycled back to the land bank, possibly, if they can't make it a go of it then. So if there's a way to give a toolkit or some factual information so people can understand what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah, I know our agreement defines zoning and the requirements
Yes.
for them seeking approval, and we've talked about that certainly with that, but I think a lot of it goes to, at the time of closing, when we combine that parcel with their already existing parcel,
Okay.
the parcel's never going to come back to us through tax sale.
Okay, good.
Because we did see that early on in the land bank when we conveyed side lots, they would just stop paying the taxes on the side lot. And what's it going to do? It's going to go to upset sale because no one's going to want the lot, and then it's helping nobody. So, Gene works now at the closings to combine those parcels together. So now they have a parcel that, one, they can build a garage on if they seek the proper approvals, but then they can also do a driveway, which again falls outside of our preview, and certainly falls into zoning, code enforcement, planning, and all the other things that are associated with that. I mean, really, it's like when you look at 427 Liberty, I wish the 2 owners would work together, split it, and put in driveways, but that's, again, not for us to determine. Because the subdivision
Patrick,
is...
do you want to say something?
I apologize, I just had a comment, I can't even touch it if I may.
Yeah.
I'm Patrick Groner Jr., and it does pertain to 427 Liberty. In doing what I've been doing recently, I've looked for optimal usage of these vacant lots, and of course, building homes is optimal, but there's a lot where that's not going to happen, or it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. So I have a question, and that is that, for instance, 427 Liberty, where you have mutual interest on both sides, has the land bank in the past considered a subdivision where, is a 40-foot lot?
Yes, 35 or 40.
Okay,
I can't remember for sure.
Has the land bank considered in the past a subdivision where 17, 20 feet goes to each side, thereby allowing parking for both and helping to alleviate the congestion you talked about? That's just a question.
No, and I will say on 2 separate occasions, I think it was about 2 years ago, we had a situation like this. Unfortunately, neither owner wanted to split the cost of a subdivision. And the cost of the survey, the cost to already purchase it, but then also the cost to do a subdivision, neither of them wanted to pay it, so.
So I will give you some sales advice, force them as a condition of getting it, and you'll probably see it happen. Because that's a city lot, that shouldn't be more than $700 to survey that. Leave it at that.
Were we going to move on these today or at the next meeting?
No, I would like some action on them today, so we can move these proposals. We get proposals all the time, so it's nice to
Okay.
keep them moving.
All right, so for 427 Liberty, we have a proposal for $600, and then there's one for $752, and escalation could be $1,500, and then the other one is $2,502 at $100 increments.
Yeah, so by looking at that, essentially the sale price, if you went strictly off the proposals, the sale price would be for Heights and Raider for $1,500 or $1,600.
I would move that.
So Aaron, where there has the past due taxes, that 50682, is that what is, whose past due taxes?
I think that's on our lot. I think that's,
Okay.
that's our lot. Which is something just for administrative purposes, that's something we have to work on exonerating prior to sale. So we'll be putting a resolution together for the board for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, I will say, I mean, at the will of the board, if the board wants, as Mr. Groner suggested, to work with the property owners, we can certainly do that as well. So, I mean, everything's on the table. I mean, again, it's the will of the board as far as a decision on these properties.
Comment? I mean, I guess for me, where
What
the,
do, flip a coin? I mean, yeah.
well, I guess for me, the person who wants to construct a garage on the property that he owns versus
Just
with the
a side.
Stillwater
Yeah.
management, my preference would be to give it to the homeowner.
Okay.
I'm assuming.
They're
Scott?
both investment properties.
They're both investment?
Yep,
Okay.
they're both
All right.
investment
All right.
properties.
Thank you for that clarification.
Now, is that a solid plan, or is that just,
To build a garage?
yeah?
I guess I didn't clarify that, and I'm not going to speak one way or the other for that. So, I mean, we
We've had
hear.
that before.
Yeah, exactly. Then, yeah, you're there. So, yeah, I mean, we hear a lot and we don't see sometimes, so.
As a non-voting member, would it be possible to take upon the recommendation and then come back to this property? Could the board move forward that they would like you to go see if you can do that, and then, so maybe table that one and come back to the other property?
That is, yes, the board could, the board could, myself and the staff are willing to do whatever the board wishes. It's the will of the board, and so if the board wants us to reach out to both property owners and see if there's a mutual subdivision, we can do that.
So what is the board's preference?
I would go with Mr. Heights and Raider because he plans to construct a garage and he has the higher bid.
Do you know what the timeline is, Aaron, to build this garage?
Because it is a side lot, we don't ask for that kind of information. We're essentially selling it to an owner to combine it with their parcel. So that's our only goal and purpose here. Certainly, we want them to detail out their plan, but we don't hold them to anything.
And I suppose that even if he didn't build the garage and made it a green space, that's the same proposal of the other buyer. So now that those are even, the tipping point is the offer price.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? You agree? So the Heights and Rider bid would be the preferred, I guess. That's how I look at it. I mean, the garage would be great because it would also possibly add taxes in the future. But at least it's, something.
Yeah.
Someone want to make a motion on one of these?
I'll move it.
Which one did you say?
I'll move that we accept the bid of Mr. Heights and Raider,
And I'll second that motion.
which is $1,600, I think.
Yes, it's $1,600.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All abstentions? It's one, okay. All right, the next one is 519 to 521 East 25th Street. This one is for side yard or off-street parking, and $500 is the proposed amount for the lot.
And I'll move that on the basis of, as it was explained to me, that this deed will merge into the other property, so this is,
And it would be combined with a commercial property.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
623 East 11th Street. It is for expansion of a current property and garden.
Make a motion, we accept that.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
102 East 24th Street. This owns the next door rental. It's for side yard, garden, parking, children play area, and the proposed bid is $1,000.
Is that a vacant lot there, Aaron?
102?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay. Is that right on the corner?
right on the corner.
24th?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Now, that next door rental, is that the unit that's vacant?
That I'm not sure. We didn't confirm
Okay.
occupancy.
Make the proposal, we accept that,
Can I get a second?
the offer from Mr. Sharma.
And I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so 715 West 4th Street actually has two proposals. One is expansion of the current property. The other one is storage for tree business with plans to eventually build a house. And the bid from John Redinger is $2,500, and the one from Jose Luis Rodriguez is $500.
I got a question, Aaron.
Yeah.
Directly behind property, it has 2317 Front. What does that mean?
That is
Is
a
that
typographical
business?
error. No, John Reidinger directly behind, so he lives at 716 West 5th Street, which is directly behind 715 West 4th Street.
Okay.
Yeah, that
Is
directly
that his
behind, that's
business
a,
address or something?
yeah, I don't know what that address is.
Okay.
Yeah, John's primary residence is 716 West 5th Street.
Okay.
And also, just for a point of reference, I know for a fact, you can't use a residential lot for storage for a tree business, so that would be a zoning violation.
And once again, the deeds would be merged even though they're not side by side?
Yes.
Yeah, I would move that we accept Mr. Reitlinger's offer of $2,500.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's it for vacant lot developer proposals.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to bring up, and I'll bring it up in executive session, I have some questions on several other properties owned by the redevelopment authority that we've discussed in the past, and I just don't want to bring it up publicly now, but I'll bring it up in executive session. Just have some concerns about where we're going forward with it.
Okay, all right. We will dismiss this meeting right here, and the board will go into a closed executive meeting. Thank you.